in the quiet town of Willow Creek, Oregon, where college diplomas were framed like trophies and ambition was measured by academic pedigrees. Claire Thompson grew up in a household that revered tradition over dreams. Her father, Richard, a political science professor at Oregon State University, carried himself with the precision of a man always lecturing to an unseen audience, crisp suits, measured words, and a posture that never slouched. Her mother, Margaret, the principal of Willow Creek's only high school, saw life as a series of disciplined steps, where mistakes were avoidable if you followed the rules. To them, the epitome of success was Claire's older sister, Abigail, who could recite the Constitution by age 5 and secured a full-ride scholarship to Yale Law School at 19. When Abigail announced her acceptance, the family hosted a grand celebration. Relatives drove in from across the state, and Richard raised a glass of bourbon, his voice thick with pride. This is the future of America. Then, with a pointed glance at Claire, he added, not some fleeting internet hustle. Claire, at 17, didn't care for memorizing textbooks or chasing perfect SAT scores. Her passion lay elsewhere, behind the glow of a computer screen. At 13, she fixed a neighbor's crashed laptop for $20 and a box of homemade cookies. By 16, she coded a sleek website for Mrs. Carter's local bakery, landing their first online order within a week. Wearing her first tailored jacket, bought with her own earnings, Claire felt unstoppable. She expected her parents to beam with pride. Instead, Margaret sighed, you should be studying for the ACT, not playing with these little projects. Richard was less subtle, eyeing her laptop setup for a client and saying, keep this up, and you'll be a tech support clerk forever. Don't expect us to fund that nonsense. Every dinner was a shrine to Abigail's achievements, her debate team victories, her internship with a senator, while Claire was met with, are you retaking the English section yet? In the spring of her senior year, as college acceptance packets from Dartmouth, Cornell, and Brown littered the dining table, meticulously arranged by Richard, Claire's heart pounded. She took a breath and spoke the words she'd rehearsed in her mind for months. I'm not going to college. I'm starting my own business. I've got a plan, my first client, and $5 saved from building websites. A glass clinked against a plate. Margaret's face froze. Richard rose slowly, his voice cutting like a winter wind. Not in this house. Not ever. His eyes held no concern, only contempt. As if Claire had betrayed a sacred code. She didn't cry. She stood, walked to her room, and packed her bags. A week later, at 18, Claire left Willow Creek with 2 duffel bags, a battered laptop, and a fire in her chest. No one waved goodbye. No one wished her luck. They were certain she'd return, broken and begging. But Claire had other plans. She landed in a cramped 400-square-foot apartment in Portland's outskirts, where the floors creaked and the windows rattled in their frames. The kitchen was so narrow she could touch both walls at once. A thrift store desk, propped under the only working outlet, became her office. Each morning, she brewed coffee in a chipped pot, worked before dawn, and didn't stop until the city's streetlights flickered on. No salary, no safety net, just Claire and her vision. A platform called Artisan Hub to help local craftsmen sell their wares online. Artisan Hub wasn't revolutionary, but it was hers. Oregon brimmed with artisans, potters, jewelers, weavers, who crafted beautiful goods but struggled with e-commerce. Claire built simple websites for them, taking a 6% cut per sale, leaving the rest to the creators. She coded by day and cold-emailed craft shops by night. Most ignored her. Some replied, "Where'd you go to school?" When she admitted, "I didn't," silence followed, or worse, a dismissive chuckle. One shop owner emailed back, "Nice try, kid." Her savings dwindled fast. Meals were instant noodles, canned soup, and the occasional apple. She cranked the heater to drown out the cold and the creeping doubt that maybe her parents were right. One night, desperate for a familiar voice, she called Margaret. When Claire mentioned she hadn't gone back to school, her mother's reply was sharp. "Then don't expect us to wait for you." The words stung, and Claire sat on her apartment floor, staring at the peeling wallpaper for an hour. 3 months in, Artisan Hub had two clients, Ellen, a candle maker, and George, a 70-year-old leatherworker who called her Tech Kid and sometimes forgot her name. Their payments covered her first utility bill without dipping into credit. Claire thought things might turn around. But then, one icy March morning, while delivering a package for Ellen, a truck rear-ended her rusty Honda at a stoplight. The car wouldn't start, and the repair bill came to $900, money she didn't have. Surrounded by unpaid invoices and packing tape, Claire sat in her dim apartment, wondering if she'd miscalculated everything. That evening, she stumbled across a free small business meetup on a community website and decided to go. Craving connection with others who might understand her struggle. At the downtown library, she met Vivian Harper, a woman in her late 50s with sharp gray eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Vivian, the founder of Streamline Solutions, a bookkeeping software company, was speaking about scaling a business. When the session ended, Claire, hands trembling, handed Vivian her homemade business card. "I'm Claire. I run a platform to help artisans sell online. No degree, no investors, but I've got real clients and revenue. Even if it's small." Vivian studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Show me your data." Claire opened her laptop, revealing modest order logs and growth charts. Vivian nodded. "You're thinking too small. Stop chasing individual sellers. Build software for craft stores. B2B. Same mission, bigger impact." They talked until the library closed, standing in the cold parking lot under flickering streetlights. Despite the ache in her leg from the morning's crash, Claire felt a spark. A path had appeared, and she was ready to take it. Back in her apartment, she rebranded Artisan Hub as Craft Sync Solutions, shifting from a consumer platform to supply chain software for small to medium craft businesses. She worked relentlessly, averaging 4 hours of sleep, rewriting code, and emailing independent retailers across the West Coast. Each new contract chipped away at her car repair debt and server costs. She hired Mia, a part-time UX design student she met at another meetup. And they worked from Claire's apartment, using cardboard boxes as desks and a whiteboard taped to the fridge. By fall, after countless rejections, an email arrived from Willow and Thread, a handcrafted textile chain with 28 stores across 5 states. Their outdated inventory system was failing, and they wanted a demo. Claire and Mia worked 6 sleepless days to build a sleek dashboard with real-time order tracking and alerts. The demo impressed, and Willow and Thread signed a $380 contract to implement CraftSync's system. Claire stood in her tiny apartment, staring at the signed agreement, her hands shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that she was no longer just a kid with a laptop. She was building something real. Claire Thompson's heart was a battlefield of resolve and regret, but her hands never stopped working. From her modest Portland apartment, where the hum of her old laptop was her only companion, she had built CraftSync Solutions into a rising star in the artisan business world. Yet, even as her company signed contracts worth hundreds of thousands, her family in Willow Creek, Oregon, remained a distant shadow. They saw her as the dropout who chased childish dreams, unworthy of their pride. But Claire, now 22, carried a secret. She was their silent benefactor, funneling over $150 to keep their lives afloat while hiding behind a veil of anonymity. When her father, Richard, was laid off from his professorship at Oregon State University after budget cuts gutted his department, the Thompson household faced a financial freefall. At 62, Richard's pride was too rigid to bend, and his savings couldn't cover the mortgage on their sprawling Willow Creek home. Around the same time, Margaret, Claire's mother, was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune condition, requiring specialty medication that their insurance wouldn't touch, $2 a month out of pocket. Claire's sister, Abigail, now a rising star at Yale Law, dismissed their pleas with a curt, "I'm buried in work. I can't help." Claire, sitting in her cluttered apartment, stumbled across a bank statement her mother had mistakenly sent to an old email address. One line burned into her mind: mortgage payment overdue by 21 days. Below it, a pharmacy bill for $2,300 glared like a warning. No one asked Claire for help. They likely thought she was still scraping by, too stubborn to return to college. But she couldn't let their home slip away. Through her attorney, Daniel Harper, she set up the Evergreen Trust, disguised as a community grant for educators. Within days, monthly payments began covering the Thompsons' mortgage. Delivered with a letter claiming a local initiative was honoring their contributions to education. For Richard, Claire created Pinewood Consulting, a shell company in Boise, Idaho, that hired him to write a civic education curriculum for $2,500 a month. He boasted to friends about his state-level advisory role, never suspecting the truth. For Abigail's newborn twins, Emma and Noah, Claire arranged scholarships through the Northwest Future Fund, covering $10 annually for their elite preschool. Abigail posted online, "A blessing from above." Claire read it and smirked. Her coffee growing cold. Over 3 years, she quietly spent $150. Every transaction masked to preserve her family's dignity and her own distance. But secrets have a way of unraveling. On a rainy Thanksgiving in Willow Creek, Claire returned home, not as the prodigal daughter, but as a woman ready to claim her truth. She carried a sleek folder and a USB drive with her keynote from the Portland Tech Summit, where CraftSync had been hailed as a game-changer. Dinner began predictably. Margaret's toast to family and achievement, Richard's speech praising Abigail's latest legal publication, and a pointed silence about Claire. Her brother-in-law, Nathan, muttered, "Let's keep the twins away from Claire's weird tech stuff. No one needs a coder at 4. Claire smiled thinly, then placed her folder on the table. "I'd like to share something," she said, her voice steady. She slid out a copy of Tech Trend Monthly. Its headline bold, "Claire Thompson, CEO of CraftSync Solutions, redefines artisan commerce." Richard snatched it, flipping pages as if hunting for a lie. "Where'd you get this?" he demanded, his tone sharp as frost. Claire met his gaze. "From my life. CraftSync employs 200 people across 4 cities. It's valued at $52 million. And I've been the one keeping this family afloat. Your mortgage. Mom's meds. Dad's consulting gig. The twins' school." She opened the folder. Bank records from Evergreen Trust. Medical payments. Pinewood's fake contract. Scholarship letters. The evidence was undeniable. The room turned to ice. Richard shoved his chair back, face red. "A dropout doesn't build $1 million company. You're lying, Claire. This is fraud." Abigail leaned in, her voice venomous. "I've slaved through law school. And you're out here playing tech mogul? Laughable." Margaret whispered, "Why hide it?" Claire's reply was calm but piercing. "Because every time I spoke, you looked at me like I didn't belong. I helped because I could. Not because I needed your approval." Richard slammed the table. "Enough. You're a disgrace. Profiting off deceit." Claire stood, gathering her papers. "You don't want to know me. You want a version of me that fits your mold. I'm done." As she reached the door, Margaret grabbed her arm. "What about next month's payment?" Claire paused, her voice soft but firm. "People who call me a disgrace don't get to live off my money. It stops today." She left Willow Creek under a gray drizzle, each raindrop feeling like a release. The next morning, Claire boarded a 6:30 a.m. flight to Clearwater, Florida, watching Oregon's clouds fade below her. She wasn't running, she was starting over. In Clearwater, she owned a 3-bedroom house with a red-tiled roof and a backyard bursting with citrus trees and jasmine. Until now, it had been a weekend escape from her relentless work. This time, she hired a local designer, Sofia Alvarez, to strip out the dated rental decor, floral curtains, chipped lamps, and craft a home that felt like her, open, modern, alive. Meanwhile, Daniel Harper sent notices terminating all financial support. Evergreen Trust stopped mortgage payments. Pinewood ended Richard's contract. The twins' scholarships would not renew. No explanations. No apologies. Claire owed them nothing. CraftSync's new headquarters opened on the 10th floor of a glass tower in Clearwater's West Bay district. Sunlight streaming across polished oak floors. 3 key team members, Mia, Rachel, and Lucas, relocated from Portland to join her. "We're starting fresh, right?" Mia asked, grinning. Claire nodded. No more hiding. This is us. Unapologetic. Kraft Sync thrived, signing 4 Florida-based clients in the first quarter and securing a $62 million valuation from a Boston investment group. Claire traded her thrift store jeans for tailored suits. Her cheap watch for a sleek smartwatch she no longer hid. She was done pretending to be less than she was. At a Women in Tech event in Tampa, Claire met Ethan Brooks, a nonprofit consultant with a warm laugh and an easy handshake. Over coffee, they talked about empowering rural entrepreneurs, then swapped stories about late-night diner runs and old rock playlists. Their third date was on a moonlit beach. Barefoot, sharing earbuds and singing off-key to Nirvana. You built a tech empire and kept it a secret, Ethan said, leaning back on her porch. I didn't want anyone reshaping me, Claire replied, clinking her glass against his. If they can't accept me, they don't get to stay. Claire's past wasn't buried, it was fuel. She launched the Claire Foundation, with its flagship program, the Trailblaze Grant, offering $25 and mentorship to young founders without degrees. The first recipient, Sophia Rivera, a 21-year-old from Mobile, Alabama, got funding for her app streamlining food truck logistics. I didn't think anyone would bet on me, Sophia said, voice cracking on a Zoom call. Claire smiled. You just needed the right person to see you. Years passed, and Willow Creek began to reach out. Abigail called one June evening. Her voice soft, almost broken. I'm sorry, Claire. Not some fake apology, I mean it. I didn't see you. Claire sipped water, her throat tight. Thanks for saying that. A week later, a letter arrived from Richard. His familiar slanted handwriting filling the page. Claire, I was wrong. Wrong to think there's one path to success. Wrong to let pride blind me. You don't owe me forgiveness. But I'm proud. She read it 10 times. Feeling a mix of relief and resolve, she mailed back a postcard. I'm living my truth. If you want to be part of it, respect is the only way. At a Tampa startup dinner, Claire shared her story. No embellishments. Just raw truth. Sometimes, you have to walk away from those who won't see you to find the ones who will. The room erupted in applause. Months later, Margaret called. We're coming to Florida. Can we see you? Claire chose a Bayside cafe, arriving early with a cold brew. Richard, his hair now fully white, walked slower. Margaret's face was softer, her floral dress catching the breeze. They sat in silence until Richard spoke. Your founder's weekly interview was incredible. Claire nodded. Thanks. Margaret reached out. We didn't know you were enough just as you are. Claire cut in. Steady. I don't need you to say that. I'm here for honesty, not promises. They stayed briefly, talking about the beach, the twins, the weather. As they left, Margaret hugged her, lightly. No demands. Claire didn't look back. Every Sunday, Claire hosts dinners in her backyard under string lights. With Ethan, Mia, and Trailblaze grantees. They share stories of grit and dreams over homemade bread. Claire doesn't need her family's approval. She's built a community that chooses her. Forgiveness wasn't about their change, it was about her freedom. She's not proving anything anymore. She's whole.